I joined HCA about 10 years ago, and my background, my whole career has been teaming up. So I'm an expert in implementing lean principles, systems, and tools in various industries. So before HCA, I worked in power plants, mines, and railroads. Before that, about 20 years in manufacturing and a couple software companies in between. So what I like to do is pair up with the expert in the industry and then figure out how together we can help improve how that product or service is delivered to the customer. I live in Nashville. Outside of Nashville, I've got 5 grown children, all productive members of society. I've got a doctor, lawyer, CPA, an anime creator, and a director. So if I could just have a mechanic, that would have just filled the whole, that would have just rounded everything out. But anyway, so I'm going to walk you through in 15 minutes and 12 seconds our journey from the last, or mine and our companies for the last 10 years. So just the quick, who is HCA? What's our construction pipeline look like? So yes, we have about $5 billion in process at any given time, 400 active projects, and yes, the expansions and renovations are the majority of what we do. So when you start talking about modular and prefab, you got to deal with an existing footprint. And so that adds a wrinkle to it when you want to standardize, because standardization gives you a significant advantage from a cost standpoint. And then we build a lot of freestanding emergency rooms, and those are standard. They're the same thing, same footprint every time. When I showed up at HCA, where I got hired, the goal there was to improve by 10%, but it wasn't really defined what the 10%, was it 10% schedule, quality, or cost, or all of it. I took it as all of it because I came from, again, manufacturing, where you monitor all of those statistics, and you don't get to say, well, if it's going to cost more, or if you want it faster, then it's going to cost you more. Or if you want better quality, we're going to have to take more time to do that, and it's going to cost more. So in manufacturing, you got to hit all 3 of those at the same time. So we started with that, then we went to a schedule goal, got more specific. We were able to reduce our durations by about 12% more or less. So our objective with prefab was to be able to take advantage of the dead time during permitting and or in parallel with site work or steel, foundations, etc. So that's kind of the concept that we were working on when I came in. I also had to build a team that could help deploy what we were trying to deploy across our general contractors and architects and engineers. So we've got Ashley focuses primarily on lean construction. Bob focuses on our prefab program. Paige and her team focuses on strategic sourcing. All those things together have enabled us to move forward with prefab. So where it started, the company hired McKinsey, paid them $1 billion to come in and figure out, I'm just kidding on the billion, but it was a lot of money. We could have done this for a lot less. But anyway, they'd already done this, figured out, well, what do we want to standardize in materials and equipment, and then what platforms do we want to focus on when it comes to modularization. And then in parallel with those 2 things, we started to, the team started, we didn't, but our design team started to standardize spaces, ER rooms, the med-surg rooms, etc. And the idea there was that we would take that standard template, and of course, when we go to an existing site, it's really a reference design that you have to site adapt, so it may have to change dimensionally slightly, but it worked. Out of this, a big success story here was the air handling units. We standardized those with Johnson Controls. We actually cut our cost per CFM in half. So if you're buying custom air handling units, you're wasting money. You probably could do 80% with standard and 20% with non-standard. So then we decided that we're going to try a bunch of different kinds of prefab. So we went out and this is where we ended up with, but essentially we tried all different kinds of prefab on pilots, if you will, and started just to see, well, which one of these could work for us and which couldn't. But once we started doing that, then all of a sudden all the resistance and challenges popped up. So the biggest one is change management, right? So anytime you want to change something, you got to manage that. So when I did my dissertation a couple years ago, I was looking at a model called the technology acceptance model, which a rocket scientist from MIT came up with. But basically, you've got the two factors that you look at to drive predict whether the customer is going to adopt the technology or the users. You have how useful it is and how easy it is to use. So usefulness, if you think about prefab, it's all the benefits, right? It's faster, safer, higher quality. So that's usefulness for anybody that is in a construction career. Then there's the ease of use. So how easy is it for us to use that? Well, the usefulness scored very high in the survey, but the ease of use scored very low. And this list here is a partial list of why it's difficult to use modular prefab. Well, this was 10 years ago when we first started. So I'll give you an example on the cost versus stick built. So we decided to do a kit of parts with our freestanding EDs, and that kit of parts consisted of about $1.5 million worth of content that we bought direct. And our FSCRs were costing $5 million back then. Well, when we bought the $1.5 million worth of content and applied it to these projects, guess what the cost of our project ended up being? Anybody want to take a guess? So $5 million construction cost. We added in a $1.5 million worth of content. Okay, it's $6.5 million, right? So what happened essentially is nobody changed how they did their pre-con work, the pricing, et cetera, because they really didn't know what this thing was. It came from outer space. We looked at mechanical costs, $110 before we were doing the kit, and it was $110 after we were doing the kit, even though we were providing about 20% of the content. So we had to figure out how to change our workflow. When you're doing modular prefab, you have to figure out what's the right timing to coordinate with the designers. It's basically like, you can kind of think of it as a piece of equipment, medical equipment. You don't wait till you start construction to figure out where you're going to put the medical equipment and the plugs. You interact with the architects, right? So you got to do the same thing, and it's different for different kinds of prefab. So then we said, hey, let's take a project and throw every kind of prefab possible and some lean activities like last planner system and see what happens. So we did this in Plano. Jay Dunn, I don't know if they're still here, but they were the GC, and they are actually fantastic at using modular and prefab. So if you're trying to do that, I don't get paid for this, but they do a good job. They understand how to use it, and that's very important. But anyway, we shifted a lot of labor off-site. The project came in under budget, under cost. RFIs were significantly less. Change orders were significantly less than a typical project. And then we made the cover of whatever that is, MCD magazine, which is kind of cool. I mean, there's an article in there too about it. So our FSCRs, we did 5. This is in 2018. We averaged about seven months for construction time, but our stick build was taking about 8.5 months. But we were paying about a 15% premium. So that ratio didn't work out, so we killed the program. But now let's fast forward to the last couple years where we started the program back up, but our traditional stick build takes about 11 months now. And we can get these done in 6 months. So the 5 months of revenue actually more than compensates for the premium, although we're trying to get that down to a zero premium. So anyway, we kept doing that, but back in 2018, we got a new VP or senior VP, and internally we were arguing, debating on what prefab to use where and when and how much. So he asked us to put together an assessment and figure out which of these you're going to use and which you aren't going to use. So we did this, and that's how we started to move towards a program approach once we kind of netted out what we thought was working and what wasn't working. Now, some of this has changed currently, like we dropped the FSCRs, but we're now doing them back again because we figured out how to do it. But at the same time, if you think about our industry, construction productivity has not improved a whole lot. It's either been flat, some studies say it's down. I think maybe data centers, if we look at that data, I'm willing to bet that it's gone up because they modularize everything. So anyway, that's something in my future. But other than that, the rest of the industry is pretty dismal. But at the same time, we all just went through all the escalation, and there's demand. You know, you're all building new buildings, so the demand's up, productivity isn't improving, and escalation is there. So that's a bad mix. And then there's the labor shortages. So you got to figure out what are you going to do. So so the speed to market was our initial goal, but now our goal is we want to offset labor and put it in a different labor pool. And that's how we gain some advantages with modular. So now this is 2023. So we've been doing it for quite a while. So we started backing into, well, what is our strategy from a program standpoint in building modular components? And so these are 4 different levels, if you will. The first one is engineer to order. Typically, we would like to see our underground electrical components prefabricated, but it's custom built to order. Every project gets exterior walls, and those are just modified to order. We do OR ceilings, and those are basically configured to order. And those are really cool because if you use one of those modular ceilings, you could spend several weeks building out the ceiling, or you can buy one of these things, have it come in, and they hoist it up, and it's in there in a day. It's just fantastic. And the cost isn't any more than stick built. You just got to get the right general contractor that can help you with that supplier to make sure it doesn't cost any more than head walls or kind of select variant. In our case, we just have a standard head wall for each modality. So then we as we continued to get organized, we came up with this really like our life cycle. So now we do proof of concept. We might do a pilot or 2, see how it works, measure the heck out of it. And if it feels like it might work for us, then we move it over to validation. And there we'll do a bunch more pilots. And, and based on those pilots, if it's benefiting us, and we can see that it's benefiting us, because it's very hard to, when you're interjecting modular or prefab into a traditional project, it's kind of tough to discern between, what's the prefab impact versus the rest of the project. So anyway, then if it meets those criteria, we start to standardize it, create guidelines, look for vendors, trade partners that can repeat it over and over again efficiently. And then it goes into program management mode where we're doing typically a long-term contract with several suppliers, because again, we can tell the architects, engineers that we're going to use prefab on this project, and here's the elements we're going to use, so they know when they're going through the design process that they're aware of what we intend to do, which helps a lot, because if you wait till CD and say, oh, by the way, let's do a bunch of prefab, well, first of all, you won't do as much, and secondly, it's going to cost you a lot more because you're going to have to rework the designs, and then and you can't rework the design enough to make it work the way you want, so the trade partner or the supplier ends up spending more on it, and you end up spending more on it. The red line is once you go towards the program, your costs continue to go down, and you're either even with stick build or better. So just a couple examples here. Underground electrical, we'd like to see that. Again, this is an example from that other project I showed you for Plano. But basically, it was all prefabricated off-site. They trucked it in, and they started at 8 in the morning, and by 11:30, they had installed that whole system down there. Versus people standing in a pit for 6 or 8 weeks. And this is in Dallas, Texas, and it's clay soil. So when you got clay soil and it rains, and it did rain a bunch during this project, it's very difficult to move around. And I don't know anybody that when they're growing up thinking about, well, when I grow up, I want to stand in a muddy pit and put together conduit. Right, so you think about trying to recruit people into this business, and it could be unsafe as well. We do central energy plant skids, exterior walls. I love those. Does anybody know what the #1 cause of death in construction is? Anybody? So I got a wall. Falls. Falls from, well, actually it starts with roofs, then it's ladders, then it's scaffolding. So when you do prefabricated exterior walls, you minimize people having to go up on a scaffolding and work. So I can't imagine why you would want, as a healthcare industry, why we'd want people up on scaffolding trying to hand build a wall. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Now that'll accelerate your project significantly because you are drying in faster. So this is the only prefab that we do that no one debated the benefits. All the other prefab, we debated the benefits to death. But this is the only one that didn't because it was pretty obvious. And then last are modular electric rooms. Is basically Enterprise Electric will build or Miller Electric, either one of them will build a full electric room. This one doesn't have drywall on it, but they'll put the walls on it, and they plop it down and you're done. You know, all the connections are already wired into the panels and everything. It's pretty cool. So, kind of sum it up here, the business value, we've been able to see the business value on all these bullet points that are in yellow. The cost side of it, if you're not counting accelerated revenue, we probably have been able to achieve maybe 5% here and there, maybe 7%. Not 30%, haven't seen that yet. But everything else really has proved out. And then this was actually generated by AI, by the way. So if you're not using AI to generate your PowerPoints, try it, because this did it in about 2 seconds and made it look really nice and everything. And it was pretty good. I mean, I didn't have to add anything to it. Here, so I would recommend, you develop a program approach. You're going to see Sunil show you a really cool program that they're doing with their outpatient, platform approach. You got to have some standards, otherwise everybody goes off the reservation and starts ordering, Italian tile for the bathroom and all this other things, which I know we just talked about having a nice space, but you've got to trade off the nice space for functionality, for patient flow, and all those kinds of things. But anyways, standards. If you can do a platform, our freestanding ER is a platform because it actually three other health systems are using the same chassis that we use. We just configured a little bit different. They make bathroom pods and head walls, and those go into the FSER, or they can go standalone. So that, again, that's kind of that platform approach. And then collaboration. You got to figure out at what point in design that you want to coordinate that modular prefab with the designers, so you don't have a mismatch when you get out in the field, like, well, the rough end isn't in the right place, etc. So that's it. So I want to introduce Sunil Shah. He's with Kaiser Permanente. He's got a really cool platform that he's working on. Over a couple of drinks last night, I got super excited. So I think you'll find this pretty fascinating.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah.
How many of you have heard me speak before? I like telling stories. So I'm going to tell you a story when I had hair. So this project started when I had a lot of hair. And the industry is talking about modular and prefab, a lot of that today. But at the end of the day, for a health system, it's all about saving money and delivering it faster. So about 10 years ago, I used to get asked this question. How many of you get asked this question? Every hour? For me, because we have 4,000 projects, active projects, about $15, $18 billion today. And I get undoubtedly asked this question almost every hour. Why does it cost so much? I remodeled my kitchen and I did this, or my friend built it for this much. Then I spent 2 weeks trying to figure out who the friend was and what number he gave him and why and what was included. And so I got tired of that. Then same question, why does it take so long? So sometimes I go back and tell them, because you take so long. One, to decide what you want to build. Two, you want me to show you every doorknob and every drawer in the design. So let's do something different. So I went to my regional president in Southern California. I said, give me some money. Invest in what I think we need to do. And I'll try to get you the 20% reduction and 20% time. It was a very long stretch goal, so I came up with big, hairy, audacious goal. I had a lot of hair. So the 2020, and as I stand here today, after 10 years, and a lot of iterative work, we are actually getting very close to that in a project in Denver area, in Lakewood. We are building a 120,000 square foot medical office building, and we will be delivering it very, very close to 20% reduction in time and about 24% reduction in time and 20% reduction in cost. So after all of the work that I have done over the last 10 years, these are the 9 steps that I'll tell you you have to do if you truly are wanting to reduce the cost and time. And there are no shortcuts. You can do parts of things, but you will never get to the actual reduction in time and money if you don't try to do these 9 steps. 1, you have to standardize the operations. What I mean by that is clinical operations. If you can't get your clinical colleagues to agree on one way to operate, it's very difficult to build the buildings with a lot of variations and reduce the cost. Once you do that, you can standardize the planning, which is the medical plan. Once you standardize the medical planning, you can standardize the rooms. You can standardize the departments, which a lot of the systems have done. What's missing today is a digital platform that allows you to use these assets over and over and again, and I will tell you, Revit is not one of them. Then build these components at a construction level details that are ready for fabrication. Then go to the market with the design and build your supply chain. And that's at a programmatic level. Number 7 is virtually then assemble the building based on the requirement using your digital platform. Then you can fabricate that holistically, and then you can assemble on site. So about 10 years ago, we focused on outpatient delivery because we we are mainly in California with our hospitals, and HCI governs that space with an iron fist, and that we did not want to take that on as part of this overall initiative. Plus, we had just come out of a building replacing a lot of the hospitals in the first wave of the seismic replacement in California in 2013-14 timeframe. So we had a lot of medical office buildings to catch up. We went to the senior management and talked about what the ambulatory care design would look like in the future. We did ethnographies, we did ideation, we did crowdsourcing, prototyping. I built 3 versions of cardboard prototype. I gave almost 200 tours to the clinicians, about 2,500 clinicians. Then I got them to agree on how they're going to operate. And as part of that process, we were able to create the design of the building that provided 34% more throughput from the same amount of square footage. That never shows up in any financial calculations, but it reduced our capital plan because we didn't need to build as many MOBs. So once we standardized the planning, we went into the market. We used to do space programming in-house using a bunch of spreadsheets. And the data was never readily achievable because there were a bunch of separate Excel files. And we converted that into a SharePoint database. And Carrie's here. Some of you may have talked to her. She led this work to create our space automation program. Now, within hours, we can program a building at the detail level, compare it with other historical space programs, and pretty well, we know what it takes or how big it is going to be so we can develop the budget and answer the question how much it's going to cost within days. What we did is we standardized every room potentially in our building with a room code, and that has become a foundational in many ways, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. After doing the functional and space programming standards, we started building digital Lego bricks, room templates, department templates, clinic modules, entire buildings. We figured out that more than 90% of the medical office buildings that we had built in last 25 years could be accommodated programmatically into 3 or 4 standard building designs. So the room templates, we have about 220 room templates, furniture, IT, casework, everything you can imagine is in our room templates. Our outpatient pharmacies and other departments at a design intent level, we did that. Our clinic module, we did that. And that allowed us to go and create a digital library platform where we can store these digital assets that can easily be implemented on a project without changing what happens in the Revit, where you can't lock down dimensions, you can't lock down the content, and we wanted it to be more of a manufacturing platform. And now, currently, as we speak today, we are converting our design intent room templates into fabrication level room templates. As part of this work, we took shell and core, and we broke it down into 15 components. And we created fabrication level drawings of these 15 components in our library so we can assemble them into buildings very quickly. Went to the market. In about 70% of the building, we have supply chain memo of pricing agreements. I think DIRT is here. We've been working with DIRT for a long time for all our interior clinical walls. And we've been using Connex Textile for last 8-9 years. We have done about 30 medical office buildings with them. DIRT exterior wall system with DBC. So they've been a great supply chain partners. And now we added MEP in Pan Pacific and Rosendin Marmeadows to complete our supply chain. So then we created a virtual, how to assemble a building virtually using all of the digital Legos. And this is a demonstration of a medical office building that Carrie planned on this platform. So what you are seeing is a complete floor plans with all our digital assets. It starts with a space program, imported it into this digital platform. It creates the bench that you see on the left-hand side with every room type. Then our planners can just drag and drop it in, adjust, lay out the floor plan. And then once they are happy, they lock the plans. All of the data that we have curated at the room level, at the department level for IT, medical equipment, all of that is ported in. That has reduced our design time that used to take 12 to 18 months into 3. Then we go to the factories. We manufacture mechanical components, the entry portal, the dog houses, entry canopies, digital exterior walls, Thrive stairs, mechanical skids, electrical skids, interior partitions. 75% of our building now is prefabricated. And this is a 4D schedule for the assembly on site. We erect steel for a 100,000 square feet building in about 10 days. And the exterior wall comes in right after the decks are poured. Within about 2 months, we are fully dried out. Our modular mechanical system with multi-trade racks. Roof, dirt walls. We also built vacuum plumbing in all of our hand washing fixtures. And we designed a special cassette in the dirt wall. It comes prefab. So journey continues for us. What we think is going to be happening is that we've been busy writing the rules so we can automate. And so we have documented planning rules, building rules, the digital platform. So our vision is in next 5 years, we should be able to type in, I want a medical office building, 100,000 square feet, so many exam rooms, so many this department. Type it in like you do on ChatGPT, and you'll get a design ready for fabrication. That's our vision.
So of course that all seems way too perfect and too good to be true. What does this mean for like as-built? Are as-built not even a document that will be required anymore, or there's still some level of chaos and decision making that happens in the field?
There is always that. But so we created two new roles in this delivery system. First is a digital archivist. So they are archiving every detail change or whatever lessons learned from the field into our digital platform. So it's not in some architectural as-built that nobody gets easy access. Our standard details get updated, put it into the library, goes into our next project. So there is a major role for digital archivist. And the second role is our general contractor role has morphed into what we call it an integration manager. They are integrating our supply chain partners as part of the pre-construction, and we de-risk the whole delivery system. We carry, Kaiser Permanente carries the risk, and integration manager manages on our behalf the whole process. And our first project, fully all of what you are seeing implemented in Lakewood, Colorado, with this new model of delivery. Mm-hmm.
All right, and oh, hold on, I'm coming. He's all the way in the back.
Thank you for the presentation. It's great. How often do you reevaluate your standards and update them based upon clinical feedback that you get? Because standards are right the day you set them, but medicine continues to evolve.
I think sometimes that's overblown, to be honest. By profession, I'm an architect. We still provide care in a 40-year or 100-year hospital, and their HCAHPS scores are as good, sometimes as not better. So Kaiser Permanente has had the design standards since 2000. We have a very rigorous program to keep them refreshed. None of our standards go beyond 3 years. So we have about 900 clinicians engaged with my department. Every year, we are doing some 20, 30 departments and refreshing, double checking. And then sometimes we do ad hoc update because somebody found some research and they wanted us to look at it. But I wanted to make sure that everybody understood. My standards are owned by my clinical content experts, not by facility design and construction. So our clinicians own the standards. We are the keeper of the standards. So we keep them pretty refreshed every 3 years. But buildings we can't afford to remodel buildings. We have 800 medical office buildings and 40 hospitals. There isn't enough capital to keep them all refreshed. It's just not possible. But we try to create standards that last a long time and they are flexible.
On our end, I think we did a refresh in 2014 and we just did another one, and I think we started in 2021 and wrapped it up in a year. Yeah, it doesn't change that much.
No.
At least
All right.
now it doesn't change that much. Maybe with AI, it's all going to change every 5 minutes. Who knows? Sorry.
All right, well, thank you, Sunil, Rob.